In today's video, we're going to be playing the most powerful creature combo deck in the modern format. This deck is known as Yawgmoth. This is because that is the main card in this deck. And if you haven't seen Yawgmoth before, this is a 4-mana 2/4 that you can pay 1 life and sacrifice a creature and put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. Meaning that this card with 2 undying creatures can allow you to draw up to as many cards as you have life. And when looking at this deck, the real power comes on the fact that it is playing 6 mana dorks and one of the best 3-drops in the game. And since we are playing 4 copies of Cordo Calling and 3 copies of Eldritch Evolution, we get to play so many sweet one-of like Hapatra, Shieldred, Phyrexian Metamorph, and many other cool cards. And while this is one of the best decks in the modern format, we're also going to be showing you a sweet trick in match number 5 on how to automatically win any game. Match 1, we are on the draw, and I'm going to keep a risky hand. Opponent goes turn 1 Mesa, we top deck an Eldritch Evolution. We'll fetch Shock and play out a Delighted Halfling. Opponent untaps, bolting our Halfling down, then plays out a tap Blood Crypt, probably meaning that they're on creativity. We top deck a Misty, we'll play that out, fetch out a Forest, then we'll play out 2 of our 1-drops. Opponent casts a Prismatic Ending, killing our Halfling, then plays out a Mountain, we top deck a Wall of Roots. We'll cast that out and attack in for 1. Opponent fetch shocks out a Steam Vents and cast that out to Teferi, bouncing our Wall of Roots to hand. We top deck a Patra, we'll attack down their Teferi, and surprisingly no removal spell, so we're just going to hold up our Bowmasters here. Opponent plays out an Arid Mesa into a Fable, and on their end step we'll flash in a Orcish Bowmasters, and they fetch out a Dwarven Mine, getting a 1/1 and cast a Change the Equation, countering our Orcish Bowmaster. We top deck a land, we'll cast out our Wall Roots into Hapatra. They don't use Fable, which is terrifying. Then they flash in a Leyline Binding, killing our Hapatra, and they attack in with their Goblin, and we'll block with our Wall Roots. And they only have a Fable after combat. We top deck a Peatland, we'll make a mana off of Wall Roots and cast out our Yawgmoth. And we'll sack our Young Wolf right now, killing their Dwarven token. Ooh, we find a Cutthroat. Then we'll play out our land. With their first Fable, they do loot away a Scalding Tarn, and then they flip their other Fable. They play out a Teferi, bouncing our Yawgmoth. And then they attack in with their Shamans, and we will not block either of them. And this was the main reason. If they played out a Run in 6, we would not want to block with our Wall of Roots, because then they could just ping this and kill it. We top deck an Endurance. That's quite a strong card. We'll play out our Yawgmoth. Then we'll sacrifice our Wall of Roots, putting a counter on our Wolf, and cast out a Zulpor Cutthroat. Then we sacrifice our Young Wolf, putting a counter on the Kiki Jiki, drawing a card. And Strangleroot's quite a good one. Then we'll evoke out our Endurance, shuffling their graveyard into their deck, and then we will sack it, putting a counter on our Young Wolf. Find another Yawgmoth, and then we'll kill their Fable. And we find a Chord. They tick up with a Teferi, and then down tick with their Wrenn, killing our Cutthroat. So in response, we'll sack it, putting a counter on our Wolf. And they attack with both Shamans. And we'll go for the blowout here, sacking our Wolf and trying to double block these. And that happens, so we'll go to blocks, trying to kill both their Shamans. And surprisingly, that just happens. Then they play out a Run in 6 and ping our Young Wolf. And they ping our Young Wolf, and we could have sacked it, but I don't think that's right. Our life total is somewhat of a resource here. We find a Swamp, we'll play out our Strangleroot Geist, and then we'll cast out a Grist. And we'll down tick Grist, sacking our Strangleroot and destroying the Reflection. And then we'll attack in for 5. And on our end step, they fetch out a Dwarf token, and they attack down our Grist. Then they tick up Wrenn, picking up a land, and playing out Tarn. We find a Colony Guardian, we'll play that out, and then we'll attack in with the team. And they fetch out another Dwarven token, trying to block, but we'll sack our plant token, killing the dwarf. And they scoop it up, so let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 4 Quarter Callings and Endurance for 3 Thoughtseize, a Phyrexian Metamorph, and a Shieldred. Game 2, our 7 looks quite powerful. Opponent leads on tap, Foundry. We top deck another Thoughtseize. We'll play out our Marsh and cast a Thoughtseize. And Run in 6 is by far the best card, so we'll take that one. They play a tap Stomping Ground. We find an Evolution, we'll play out our Wall of Roots. They shock with Steam Vents and then play out a Teferi, and bouncing our Wall of Roots. We top deck a Young Wolf, and I'm afraid of the creativity off the top here, so let's just play out our Thoughtseize, see in their hand. And they just drew 2 extra lands, so we'll take this pending. And then we'll play out our Young Wolf. They tick up their Tef and play out a Wooded Foothills. We find a land, we'll play out our Wall of Roots, then we'll shock in our Tomb, and then play out our Strangleroot Geist. And we'll go to kill their Teferi. And they did find a Leyline Binding, taking out our Geist. And on our end step, they fetch out a Dwarf. They play out a Mountain and take up Tef. We find another Young Wolf. So we'll play out an Eldritch Evolution, sacking our Wall Roots. And in response, they bolt our Young Wolf. And with this still on the stack, they bolt our Young Wolf again. And after all of that, I kind of got lost in the sauce, so I decided to pick up a Strangleroot Geist for some reason. Not sure what reason. Then we'll play out a Young Wolf and attack down their Teferi. Opponent cycles a Ketria Triumph. And we find up a Seiju for turn. We'll play out a Grist. And we'll down tick, sacking our Strangleroot Geist, killing their Dwarf token, and then we'll attack attacking, and opponent's down to 12. Opponent plays out a Teferi, then bounces our Strangleroot Geist. Ooh, we top deck a Yawgmoth. We'll tick up with our Grist, milling over a Goose, and I think we play out Yawgmoth here. So we do have to sack our legendary Boseiju to do this, but I still think it's fine. Then we'll attack their Teferi. Opponent has another Teferi, trying to bounce our Yawgmoth, and in response, we'll draw a few cards by sacking Young Wolf. Then we'll sack our Insect, putting a -1 on the Wolf, and then we'll draw another card after that by sacking the Wolf again. And then they play out a Mesa, we draw a Yawgmoth, we'll tick up with our Grist, then we'll play out a Strangleroot Geist into a Colony Guardian, making a plant token, then we'll play out our Delighted Halfling, and then we'll attack down their Teferi. And on our Incept, they fetch out another Dwarf. And they do have a creativity for 1, getting an Emrakul. And if you don't know how this works, Phyrexian Metamorph can enter as an Emrakul, so we'll cast a 3-mana Emrakul. Ah, yes, our 3-mana Emrakul. Then we'll down tick with our Grist, sacking our Strangleroot Geist and killing their Emrakul. And then we'll play out a Rot Farm, bouncing our Boseiju, and we'll attack in for 6. Opponent casts out a Teferi, bouncing our Emrakul. It's just so sad that 2 Emrakuls got answered so easily, and then they scoop it up. So let's get on to match number 2. Match 2, our starting hand just is waiting for a Yawgmoth, which is usually a good place to be. Opponent leads on turn 1 Forest into a Goose. And we top deck a Young Wolf, so we'll play out our Marsh and cast out a Goose. And they fetch shock for Godless Shrine, meaning they're probably on a combo deck. And they just make a food passing. We'll play out a Forest, then cast out a Wall of Roots, and then cast out a Hapatra. Yes, and they cast out a Cauldron, which means that they're on the Samwise Cauldron combo deck. We draw another Forest. We'll play out our Young Wolf, then we'll play out a Verdant, and we'll attack in with our Patra. And they block with the Gat, just because they can bring it back with their foods that they have anyways. And on the end step, they cast an Eldamri's Call, picking up a Samwise. Then they cast out their Samwise into a Scurry Oak. We find another Endurance, which is not horrible, but I'm not feeling very confident about this position. An opponent casts a Finale Devastation for 1, meaning they can pick up a Visir Seer, and we can only cast out 1 Endurance, which means that they can bring it back with the food, and we are just dead on board here. So we'll scoop it up and get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out 3 Bowmasters and a Guild Goose for 2 Pylon and 2 Endurance. Game 2, our starter's a little too weak here, so we'll mull. And our 6 is just way too bad. We're going to have to go down to 5. And our 5 looks fine here. We'll put back an Endurance and a Strangleroot Geist. We'll play out our Colony Garden, getting a plant. Opponent goes turn 1 Triumph. We find a Verdant. We'll play out our Peatland and cast out a Hapatra. Opponent plays the Plains into a Samwise. Young Wolf's a good pickup here. We'll attack him with our Hapatra, forcing the trade. And they do take the trade. Then we'll play out our Wall of Roots into a Young Wolf. So all we need is a Yawg here. They play out a Marsh Flats, doing nothing. So on the end step, we'll fetch out our Dryad Arbor. And we pick up an Endurance. So we'll attack in for 2. Guess where the beats. And they didn't even have anything on our end step either, which is weird. And I guess they have nothing here. What a shame. So on the end step, we flashed our Endurance because we are the beat down here. When we top deck a Halfling, we'll attack in with just our Endurance and Young Wolf because we are afraid of a Coco here. And then we'll cast out our Delighted Halfling, holding up our Endurance. And to the surprise of all, they do have a Coco. Finding 2 Visir Seers, not that great. They play out a Samwise, then shocking an Overgrown Tomb, casting a Cord for 1. And they do have the combo here, but hopefully they go for it and we can just flash in our Endurance. And it looks like the opponent's going to go for it. They sack their Cauldron and they try to bring it back. So in response, we have to flash in our Endurance. Oh my god, we top deck a Cord as well. And we are 100% casting that now, picking up a Yawgmoth. And opponent should just scoop it up here. We'll kill both of their Visir Seers, drawing a bunch of cards. And yeah, they do scoop it up, so let's get on to game 3. Game 3, our starting hand does have a turn 2 Grist, so we'll keep this for sure. Opponent goes turn 1 Verdant, we'll go turn 1 Forest into Gilded Goose. They play out a Heath, and we top deck a Halfling, so we're going to go Swamp and slam our Grist, taking up milling over our Cutthroat. And on our end step, they cycle an Unearth. They play out a Plains into a Ranger Captain, and they pick up a Visir Seer off that. Oh my goodness, we find a Yawgmoth. We'll play out a Young Wolf. Then we'll shock in a Tomb and cast out a Halfling. And we'll tick up with a Grist, giving us an insane next turn. And it looks like opponent has nothing again. Crazy. Ooh, we find an Endurance. Big pickup. We'll play out our Yawgmoth. Then we'll sack our Young Wolf, putting a counter on their Ranger Captain. And in response, they evoke out an Endurance. And in response to the Yawgmoth putting a -1 on the Ranger Captain, they sack it, which does deny us the draw, but that seems a little weird. Then we'll tick up with our Grist, getting a double activation. And then we'll go tap land and attack in for 2 here. And shocker, they do have a Coco. And they get a Visir Seer and a Samwise. And after they don't block, we will sack some of our insects, killing their board. And in response to the first one, they sack the Visir Seer, denying our draw again. Then we'll sack 2 insects, killing the Samwise. Opponent plays out an Extraction Specialist. So in response, we're going to sacrifice some creatures, trying to find a different green card to pitch for our Endurance. And we do find an Eldritch after sacking 2 creatures, so we'll pitch cast our Endurance, getting rid of their yard. And in response to that, they scoop it up. So let's get on to match number 3. Match 3, we are on the draw, and hand is a little risky, but I think it's definitely worth keeping. Opponent goes turn 1 Sacred Foundry into a Swift Spear. We top deck a Yawgmoth, so we'll play out our Halfling. They play out Advantage into a Searing Blaze, and looks like we're up against Burn and getting absolutely destroyed here. We find a Tomb off the top, we'll just play that tapped and hope we don't die here. They play out another Swift Spear into a Lava Spike. What a crazy start from them. And we're down to 7. We top deck our Cutthroat, we'll play out our Grist. Taking up, milling over a Wall of Roots. They cast out a Goblin Guide and attack in with the team. And we could block, but if they have a burn spell, we're dead anyways. And like, there's just nothing we can really do anyways. The only chance we have of winning is keeping our insect around. So no blocks, and let's hope that we don't die here. And after combat, they do have a Skewer, so didn't really matter. We're going to take out a Bowmaster and Endurance for a Haywire Might and a Shieldred. Game 2, our starter has a great hand. We'll go Forest into a Young Wolf. Opponent goes Mountain into a Lava Spike. When we top deck a Peatland, we'll play out another Wolf into a tapped land. Then we'll poke in for 1. They play another Mountain into a Vortex. We find a Shieldred, which is a fantastic draw. We'll play out our Haywire Might and sack it now, killing their Boiling Vortex to gain our 2. And then we'll poke in for 2. And you could make an argument to hold back for an attacker, but they obviously don't have a creature here, so we'll just keep it like that. They play Advantage into a Searing Blaze, killing a Young Wolf. Not a great exchange for them. We draw a Halfling, and we will slam our Shieldred, and we'll attack in for 3. And on the instep, they do have a good answer in Path, so we'll pick up a Forest. And they play a Foundry into another Searing Blaze, killing our Young Wolf. Ooh, Grist is quite strong. We'll play out our Grist, tick up, and then play out our Halfling. And then we'll poke in for another 1. And another land for the opponent. Into an Exquisite Firecraft? What the heck? Interesting. Oh my god, Guild Goose off the top. What a great one. We cast out our Guild Goose, and then we're going to cast out a Chord for 2 here. And we are going to pick up our Prosperous Innkeeper. And then we take up our Grist, and when a creature enters the battlefield, we gain a life. And then we'll also sacrifice our food now, going up to 10. And they have another Exquisite Firecraft? What the? I guess that's a spell that they can have. We take up with our Grist, gain another life. Then we'll crack our Peatland, finding a Chord of Calling. Then we'll play out our Halfling, gaining another life. And we just cannot lose at this point, so I guess we'll just do things and stuff. They play another land and then crack an Islet, and then they scoop it up. So let's get on to game 3. Game 3, our 7 doesn't have any lands, so we're going to mull. And our 6 is pretty strong here. We'll put back a Shieldred. Opponent goes turn 1 Goblin Guide, and it reveals a Chord of Calling. So we'll go turn 1 Misty, fetching out a Forest, and then play out a Young Wolf. They shotgun a Foundry and poke in for 2, revealing an Orcish Bowmasters. So we are not blocking here. Then they suspend a Riftbolt and skewer the Critics. Not a great start for us. We'll play out a Colony Garden and then play out a Haywire Might. And their upkeep, they Riftbolt us. And they attack in with another Goblin Guide, giving us a Nurturing Peatland this time. And we will chump block this time. And we top deck another Chord. And we'll play out our Peatland and just hold up a Chord. And on our end step, they go for a Skullcrack. So in response, we will cast a Chord. And again, we will pick up our Prosperous Innkeeper. And then we'll cast out our Bowmasters with the Skullcrack on the stack, meaning that 2 creatures will enter the battlefield, gaining us 2 life. They cast out a Swift Spear. And they attack in with both. Goblin Guide's being nice now, giving us another Marsh, and we will chump block both. And we find a Halfling, we'll cast that out, and then play out a Blooming Marsh. And we'll just hold up Chord here. We'll attack them with both, revealing a Cutthroat. And we'll block with our Young Wolf and our Halfling. And they do nothing before damage, so we just let it happen. And they do nothing else, so on the end step, we'll Chord. And they cast a Skullcrack. So I have a feeling this game's just over here. So we'll pick up a Cutthroat, and we find a land for turn. We'll cast out our Eldritch Evolution, sacking our Innkeeper, draining the opponent for 1, picking up our Yawgmoth, and then we'll play a land. And then cast another Evolution, and we'll pick up a Hapatra. Then we sack an Insect token, putting a -1 on the Swift Spear, top decking a Chord. Then we'll sack our Haywire Might, putting another counter on the Swift Spear. And then we'll cast a Chord. Oh, and before we can do that, they can Skeed. So let's get on to match number 4. Match 4, we're on the draw, and our starting hand is a little too weak. And our 6 is much stronger. We'll put back a Gilded Goose. Oh, we're actually on the play, my bad. We'll go turn 1 Halfling. Opponent goes turn 1 Bloodseemire into a Bauble and fetches away their top card. Ooh, top deck a Chord. We'll fetch out a Forest now and hold up our Endurance. An opponent fetch shocks and casts at a Dothi. So on the end step, we will flash in our Endurance. Ooh, top decking a Grist. So we'll play that out. And we'll down tick right away, sacking our Halfling and killing their Dothi. And then we'll poke in for 3. And they cast an Inquiry. Did not expect that. But we do find a Bowmasters. Pretty sweet. And they play a Hollow One into a Bauble, looking at our top. Into another Bauble. So you know what time it is. So on our upkeep, in response to both their Baubles, we'll flash into Bowmasters. And we'll shoot them for 1. And then they draw off Bauble, giving us another Bowmaster trigger. And then we get another Bowmaster trigger. And we find a young wolf could pick up, so we'll tick up Grist and cast out our wolf. An opponent casts out their own bowmaster trying to kill our bowmaster, so in response to their bowmaster killing our bowmaster, we'll cast a Court of Calling, which finds a bowmaster, and this bowmaster will kill their bowmaster, and they go to attack our Grist, which is fine. Ooh, we tough to get another Grist. Well, we'll send in with the team, and they block our bowmaster with their army going down to 1, and then we'll cast out our Grist. And in response, they concede, so let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out Hapatra, Court of Calling, and a Gilded Goose for 2 Endurance and a Shieldred. In game 2, our starting hand looks great. Opponent goes turn 1 Cliffs, we'll play out our Verdant, fetching out a Forest and playing out a Halfling. And then they bolt our Halfling. They go Swamp into a Dothy. Then we draw an Eldritch Evolution, we'll play out our Halfling and play our Bounce Land, bouncing back our Forest. Oh, and they have another Dothy. This is a scary start from them. We top deck another land, we'll play out our Forest and cast out a Yawgmoth. They go straight to combat, attacking in for 6. And then play out a Goblin Lore, playing out a Hollow One into a Bauble. Ooh, and we find a Grist. This is a super complicated turn here. Not sure what the best line is, but we end up going with playing out a Grist. And we'll tick up with our Grist, getting an Insect, and then we will sack both our Insect and our Delighted Halfling, putting counters on the Dothys. Then we'll play out our Verdant, fetching out a Swamp, and then we'll discard a Wall of Roots to proliferate, putting a counter on our Grist and killing both of the Dothys. And they go straight to combat, attacking us for 4, and we will chump block here. We top deck another wall, we'll tick up with our Grist. And in response, they surgical our Yawgmoth. Interesting timing, but that's fine. Then we'll cast out both of our Wall of Roots and play a tapped Overgrown Tomb. And they do not attack. And in our upkeep, we will cast a Court of Calling. And we will pick up our Shieldred. Then we draw for turn, gaining 2 life, finding an Endurance. Then we'll down tick with our Grist, sacking our Insect to kill their Hollow One. And they scoop it up, so let's get on to match number 5. And before we get on to match number 5, I just want to drop a friendly reminder to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to be showing a clip of number 5 from the live stream. And you'll understand why in just a second. Should I lie to this person? I'm just doing it.